Welcome back to Everything I Know About Chronic Insomnia. This is going to be the last video in the series. Well done for making it this far. This is where we really get into the nitty gritty of what you can do on a daily basis. I mean, we've covered some of that already in terms of your outlook on things and thought processes and the philosophy side that we looked at in the last video, or the last but one video. And in this one, we're really going to be looking at lifestyle because this is absolutely key. A lot of the time there's things in our lifestyle which we're not aware of is actually having a very negative impact on our health, not just insomnia but various different aspects. Now, I said in a much earlier video that this is not about any sort of self-blame. We do what we do because it's the best thing at the time, and if that means getting drunk, and if that means eating junk food or whatever it is, or having one night stands, or whatever the thing is that helps people cope, objectively, when you zoom out, they may not be the most helpful things, but they got you through a moment. And so this is not about blame. There's reasons why maybe some of these negative aspects and habits in our lifestyles are there. It's about recognizing them and trying to understand how they may be impacting on our insomnia, and can we actually do things about them. So the first thing to underscore is that our nervous state is key. It really is the only game in town when you're discussing insomnia. It's what is your nervous state like right now? Your nervous system, is it wired? Is it relaxed? Is it calm? Is it worried? Is it anxious? Everything stems from your nervous system. And of course, your nervous system is informed by your mental state and the things that you have going on. And a lot of the things we've talked about up until this point feed into your nervous system. So if you're not in the present and instead you're in the past and or future, resentful of things that have happened, worried about things that may happen, all of that feeds into it. So really the end goal here, all of these videos could be summed up as you need to work on your nervous system. Now, there's a resource here that I didn't mention in the previous video about resources, but there's a woman called Irene Lyons. That's Lyons, Lyon. Forgive me, Irene, if it's Lyon or possibly Lyons, but look her up. She is all about the nervous system, the nervous state. She has paid courses, but there's a lot of free material as well, and she'll give you some tools that will help you stabilize your nervous system. Now, it's worth pointing out that if you're in a really bad way with insomnia, it's understandable to be really impatient, and you're like, don't talk to me about all these long-term things and my nervous system, and apparently I've got to go and do a course now, and I've got books to read. Remember, we're not making this a full-time job, but at the same time, you do have to want to do this, and it does take some work. But also remember that these are the long-term things. If you're in a really bad way right now, if you're at a really low ebb, well then go back to the coping video and go back to the video where I talk about medication in the last video. These are the first aid tools that we can use to just deal with a situation as it happens and stabilize. So don't discard these and think, well, my house is on fire and you're telling me to go and take a course. No, this is the longer game. But your nervous state is key. Everything comes back to your nervous state. You will sleep as well as your nervous state allows. That's really all there is to it. Unless you have some, edge case, other things going on in your life, like particular illnesses that feed into your ability to sleep, then for most people it's going to be as simple as, what is your nervous system like right now? I mentioned previously about the need to heal traumas and resentments, and again, this is a bit left field because you certainly won't get any doctors or health services talking about this in terms of insomnia. But again, insomnia is a symptom. In nearly all, if not all cases, it is a symptom, not an original problem in and of itself. So I mentioned in the previous video a process of looking at your traumas and resentments and past angers to yourself, to other people. There's an excellent book called The Child Within, In fact, I'm just going to grab the book. Oh, sorry, it's not called The Child Within, it's called The Child in You. And it's by a German psychologist called Stephanie Stahl, Stahl, that is definitely recommended reading. It goes through the process of understanding why we behave like we do, what are the blocking factors in our ways of thinking, and how do we process what happened to us, or difficult things you've been through, and how they're kind of hindering us in the present. I heartily recommend this book, The Child in You by Stephanie Stahl. It's available on Penguin, and it's definitely worth reading, because this will always come and bite you at different times. You'll have good times and bad times, but if you don't heal your traumas and resentments, this is going to bite you again and again, because really that's what's behind this. Remember, insomnia is a symptom, so that means there's something else going on in the background. Exercise, oh my god, the conversations I've had with people about the importance of exercise and mental health. This is something that unfortunately is only really becoming known belatedly these days. Although, of course, if you go further back in history, it was always known. They wouldn't have framed it in the sort of terminology of mental health and things, but everybody knew that you had to be active to live a wholesome life. And although they didn't use terms like mental health, which is a very recent invention, they understood at some level that it was necessary, exercise and nature, for staying sane, basically, and staying happy. And of course, we live much more sedentary lifestyles than ever before. The further you go back, people were working in fields and things, and they had much more, working side by side, and community and cultural aspects with each other. And they were out in nature, and now we're kind of in rooms behind screens. And we are not as connected, and we substitute that for social media, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So I'm going to put it as bluntly as this: if you are struggling with insomnia, but you are not active in your exercise and your exposure to nature, you have no right to feel bad about having insomnia. I know that may sound harsh, but it's absolutely true. If you are not exercising, if you are not giving yourself all of the bountiful, positive things that exercise and nature bring, then you really don't get to wonder why you're not sleeping well. Now, that isn't to say that nobody who doesn't exercise can sleep well. Clearly there are people, but you are not one of those people that sleeps well naturally, and so you need to do everything possible. And these are quick wins, by the way. These are easy wins, as you can probably see by jumping ahead, like quit caffeine. We'll come to that in a minute. But find an exercise you enjoy. Don't make it a chore. Again, coming back to the idea that this is not a full-time job. It shouldn't be any kind of job. This should be something we embrace, the whole process, and exercise is part of that. So you don't have to go jogging if you hate the idea of jogging. You don't have to go to a gym if you hate the idea of going to a gym. I hate the idea of gyms. I don't go to a gym. A gym, again, a very recent invention. Previously, our ancestors would have been appalled at the idea that we spend all day at a screen and then have to go to these man-made structures called gyms just to exercise, which they did naturally anyway. But anyway, that's kind of getting off the point. Find something you enjoy. Try new sports. Take up an old sport you used to like but don't do anymore. I do a ton of swimming. That's what I love doing. Swimming is about as good as it gets. It doesn't put stress on the joints. It helps every part of the body. It's exhilarating, and you don't even get hot, of course, because you're in the water. So maybe that's an option for you, but do whatever you need to do. Don't put a lot of hurdles in front of you and think, oh, I need to buy loads of equipment. But it's really important that it's something you enjoy. Otherwise, you just won't stick with it. So yeah, have a think about that. Maybe cycling, or even just like really like intensive walks, where you're actually going to get hot. I mean, the point is, it needs to be exercise. You need to get the heart going, to get the dopamine and the endorphins firing. And they're the chemicals that are not really going to make you feel good, but they're going to just let you know that you've really had a workout here. There's endorphins that get released when you sweat, when you exercise, and that they are positive hormones. It's like serotonin and dopamine, and it will counter the effects of a bad night. The number of times I've had a really bad night and been really miserable in the morning, gone swimming because I was in the habit of doing so, and habit is really important, by the way. I was in the habit of going 4 or 5 times a week, and I would come back from swimming feeling transformed. No, it didn't substitute sleep, but it was like the next best thing. So yeah, that's really important. And nature cannot be overstated either. Again, increasingly we live in boxes, we work at screens, we watch Netflix and things, and there's so many studies out there about the positive effects on our mental health and health in general, of nature, of getting out there in forest bathing, as they call it, hiking, just being around trees. Trees are such great teachers of stillness. When you think that your life is so hectic and there's phones and notifications on WhatsApps and things, it's so healing. I cannot emphasize the need for exercise in nature enough. Now, related to nature, have more quiet time and still time. And I've put in brackets here, we'll come to Qigong in a moment, but rediscover boredom. When was the last time you were bored? I haven't been bored for a hell of a long time, except that I've started to try to give myself time where I'm not doing anything. Now, that's not really boredom, but you get the idea. Inactivity is probably a better time for it. When was the last time you were completely inactive? Not looking at your phone, not not on a laptop or anything like that, watching the box series, binge watching. All of these terms, by the way, like binge watching, are poison to somebody like us who is struggling with sleep. There's an entire industry out there whose sole aim is to keep your eyeballs on what it is that they do, and there's algorithms and all sorts of things. But again, I'm getting ahead of myself. But have more quiet and still time. Now, that doesn't have to mean like the cliched meditation where you sit with your eyes closed and in prayer pose with your hands together in prayer, and you force your mind to empty yourself. By the way, that's not true meditation. Any Indian yogi will tell you that that's bullshit. That's not really what meditation is about. But it still remains to be present, to be quiet. There's a very famous quote, I forget who it is, but I love this quote. And it is that all of the problems in the world are because man cannot sit with himself alone in a room doing nothing. And if you think about that for a moment, it's because we are so driven by data, information, he said, she said, all these narratives and stories. I've got to go and do this. I need to check my WhatsApp, email, Facebook, Insta, the list, whatever. The list is endless. And if you can actually engineer some quiet time and just actually be without needing to do, you will find that there is a shift in your nervous state. And again, that going back to that first point, nervous state is the name of the game here. It really is the whole thing that we've been trying to look at in this video series, is about helping your nervous state, because you'll sleep as well as your nervous system and your nervous state allows. Qigong, you may be wondering what that is. Qigong is something I personally recommend, although there are similar things, equivalents. Qigong is like Tai Chi, which is more familiar to many people. Tai Chi is, as you may know, it's an Eastern martial art, firstly, but not in the sense of like, you might be thinking of like Kung Fu and that sort of high octane activity. It's very slow, and it's used not only as a martial art, but as a way to be present and to relax. In a lot of areas of China, they do Qigong or Tai Chi in the mornings in workplaces to set themselves up for the day. Qigong is like Tai Chi, but is more stationary, and therefore it's probably easier to get into because you're not walking around. But they both involve energy work and breathing and noticing your breath and slow, deliberate movements of the limbs, and it is just wonderful. The feelings it gives you, the sensations. I cannot recommend Qigong enough. There's a guy online called Chris Shelton, and he has a 30-day Qigong course on YouTube. It's completely free. 30 days to better health using Qigong, and each day is it ranges from about 25 to 35 minutes. But yeah, I've done that course twice, and I found it transformative. And if you're thinking about how you can have more time being quiet and still, and getting out of the rat race and the information overload, and being always connected to devices and data and things, it is an absolute godsend. So yeah, definitely check that out. So we've come to this point already a little bit, but a world of screens and eroded attention spans. And someday I'm going to write a book about this. In fact, somebody already did. There's a book by a guy called Johann Hari called. That's going to annoy me, right? You're going to have to wait there while I find out what it is. Called Stolen Focus. Stolen Focus by Johann Hari, who is a British journalist. And it is about, I must concede I haven't read it yet. It's on my reading list. But it is about this industry that is designed to completely erode your attention span. We live in a time of rapidly diminishing attention spans. We see this in kids, but not only kids, where they cannot sit still, they cannot cannot cope without having a phone to press things on, to browse, to check, social media. People keep scrolling. Facebook, there used to be a thing on Facebook where when you got to the end of the scrolling, it said, yep, that's it, you're all caught up. Guess what? They got rid of that because they realized that that wasn't going to make them money, because the more you scroll and keep looking, the more they can show you adverts. So it's really important to be aware that we live in a time where your attention is gold dust to these people. Advertisers pay for it. And this is why when you go on YouTube or go on Twitter, there's these algorithms that show you things that are, the very clever people build these things. I would say they're wasting their life, but that's me being judgmental. But there's people, very clever people, who could do great things in the world, who are dedicating their talents to building algorithms that are designed to keep you glued to the screen. And that goes for YouTube, it goes for Twitter, it goes for Insta. You'll scroll forever and they'll give you recommendations, and it certainly goes for the streaming services like Netflix and Prime and things. And the way that they drip feed things, and this whole terminology we've developed about binge watching, it is poison. It is poison, and this is a great opportunity to ditch it. And instead turn yourself to maybe some of these things I've been talking about: more exercise, nature, quiet time. Don't get sucked into this, because it will just eradicate your attention span and increase your anxiety. You may notice in your own behavior already that when you have to wait even just a few seconds for something, sometimes there's a rising anxiety. Like, why is this video waiting to load? Oh, I've got to sit through an advert first. Or, why is my phone taking a while to open this app? We are getting more and more impatient, and it's only going to make your nervous system even more wired and less able to sleep. And it goes without saying that you don't want to be doing any of these things, like engaging in this stuff like near to bedtime. Related to your mental state and your nervous state, it's just never rush. Never rush. I found myself rushing the whole time. Some years ago, it got to ludicrous levels, where I would get up, make breakfast, and catch myself actually jogging from the worktop in my kitchen where I prepare breakfast to the fridge to get the milk out, the oat milk. Now, I don't have a huge kitchen, but I still thought it necessary to jog, not just walk, but actually jog or skip or whatever I did, to actually increase the speed with which I could prepare breakfast. And I caught myself doing it, and I just thought, what the hell am I doing? And you know what really fuels it as well? If you get up late because you've had a bad night, you then feel that you have to make up for lost time in the day. You're like, oh, okay, other people have been up since 8, 7, whatever. Here's me rocking up at 10. And okay, come on, gotta make breakfast. Oh, okay, gotta get the milk out of the fridge. And then this needs doing. And you go the whole day like this, and eventually your whole life like this. And you're not present with anything. You're just rushing. It's a rat race of your own creation. So make a determined point to not rush anything where you can possibly avoid it. Don't rush anything, even if that means not doing something, because it's better to not do it than to do it in a really negative rushed energy, because it's just not good for you. So I would heartily advise looking at anything in your life where you're rushing and not really present with it. You're just doing it because you feel you have to, and you're doing it at a speed that is not allowing you to actually indulge it. And on that note, by the way, speaking of breakfast, I've not put it on this list, But one thing I did as well, it kind of goes back to that point about a world of screens and eroded attention spans. Quit eating whilst watching TV or using your phone or anything. One of the best meditations you can possibly do is to eat. So you're actually present whilst eating. You're enjoying every mouthful. There's some interesting science, by the way, about how a lot of obesity is linked to people unconsciously eating whilst they're doing other things, and they eat more than they need to because your mind is on whatever it is you're doing. You know, your phone, your laptop, your iPad, whatever, and so you're not really present with it. You're not savoring every mouthful. You're not even chewing enough times. I remember reading people don't chew enough. You're supposed to chew like 50 to 60 times per mouthful, depending on the food, of course. So this is why when you go to the cinema, they sell you really bad food and like really bad drink, because they just want to fire all of your senses. You know, you're watching whatever you're watching, you're drinking, getting the sugar rush, you're eating the popcorn, you're not really there with it. This is why they give you so much of it, those huge popcorn things, because if you actually sat down and consciously ate popcorn, you'd eat like a fifth of it, because suddenly you're actually there with the popcorn and it's just you and the popcorn. It's not just a tool to shove into yourself while you're watching something else. So I definitely recommend reclaiming your meal times from making meals subsidiary to something else that you're doing as well. Quit negativity. Now this might sound like really lefty and like broad and like what does that mean? But another thing that I got out of Insomnia was I realized it was an opportunity to just get away from like horrible things. The news is a great example. Ask yourself why you need to watch the news. I asked my family this, and the invariable answer is, well, I need to know because in case something happens. And then I'm like, well, okay, how much of the news has actually got anything to do with like the immediate area of where you live versus murders that happen hundreds of miles away, or Israel, Gaza? Now, I'm not saying don't be aware of things if you want to be politically aware or like well-rounded, however you see it. But I would just encourage you to ask the question of why you think you need to know what is on the news. And by the way, the news is nearly always biased anyway. If it's a newspaper or a news channel, most of them are owned by people with agenda, and you're going to be fed things. But I don't want to get into sort of conspiracy theory territory. If that's not a conspiracy theory, these things are owned by individuals who have their own editorial narratives and don't say things that contradict those narratives and so on. So yeah, the news is absolutely gone for me. I haven't watched the news or read the news for years, and it is fantastic. There's other examples: misery memoirs, horror films. Again, the same sort of question really. What is it you get out of these things? You know, horror films baffle me. They really do. I've never been a horror film fan, even before I had Insomnia. But what the hell is wrong with humanity if apparently it's fun to watch people being mutilated, even though it's pretend, but it's done in a way to allow you to fantasize that it's real. Otherwise, nobody would care about the acting or the script. Or it could just be a cartoon, couldn't it? It's supposed to make you feel like it could be real. What the hell is wrong with humanity if we enjoy the idea of other people, and that's key, other people being torn to pieces and terrorized? Well, I wouldn't want that to happen to me, so I don't see why I'd enjoy watching other. So I have a whole thing about how horror films is indicative of like serious psychological fuck ups, not just in like individuals. I'm not having a go at anyone. If that's you, I'm talking about like on a societal level, that this was ever made acceptable. But I would encourage you again to just look at anything negative in your life. Some negative things can't be avoided, but plenty of it can. So take or leave that as you see fit. You may be like, well, okay, I really don't get what avoiding horror films is going to do for my insomnia. And that's fair enough, but I just mention it because this whole thing is just about what's worked for me. Quit caffeine. Oh, this is another easy win. Why would you want caffeine? Seriously, I know I'm a software engineer. I've worked in a lot of offices and I've come into contact with a lot of people for whom caffeine is almost like a fashionable addiction. They love this idea that they can't do anything in the morning without caffeine. And, it's manifestly not true, but there's this whole very middle class office worker shtick about, I can't do anything without my morning coffee and stuff. And you know what? Firstly, if that's true, that's not a great thing that you need stimulant. Secondly, I don't think it is true. But if you have caffeine, and most people do, again, if you are struggling with sleep, I would just ditch that right now. Why have it even in the equation? You can have decaf coffee, you can have decaf tea, there's herbal teas, there's coffee substitutes made of chicory and things. I mean, even if you don't fancy the idea of the alternatives, there's decaf coffee. That's all you need to know. There's decaf tea, that's everything you need. But of course, it's not just coffee, it's Coca-Cola, it's energy drinks. Energy drinks are absolutely packed with caffeine, like scary levels of caffeine. So yeah, I would just find other things to drink if possible. Again, it's a question of why would you even want this in the equation? We're trying to do everything we can, and these are relatively quick wins. If you drink a lot of Coca-Cola, well then, I guess you could go and drink, I don't know, Fanta or something if you really need fizzy drinks or something. So yeah, potentially quick caffeine. Diet is another huge one. What is it to say about improving your diet? Everything in your life improves if you have a good diet, doesn't it? I don't have anything specific to say about the link between food and insomnia and poor sleep, although there are purported links and there's science out there, particularly relating to processed foods and what they call UPFs, ultra processed foods. So yeah, again, I said up top, didn't I, that this is an opportunity, and as well as an opportunity to reduce screen time, exercise more, maybe it's an opportunity to improve your diet if you need to. Eat more fresh food. And again, going back to that idea of never rushing, a lot of people eat poorly because they rush. They don't believe that they have any time to eat well. This is a time to maybe reconsider if that's something that you think is a factor in your life. Be careful of alcohol. Alcohol is a double-edged sword. Many insomniacs, me included, have been in a position where you feel like having a drink because it's going to help you sleep. And sometimes it does. If you drink a lot in an evening or you have strong alcohol, yeah, it can absolutely put you out. Here's the thing. Your body gets used to it and you need more and more, and it becomes ineffective. And actually, alcohol is recognized as something that can inhibit sleep after it initially helps sleep in the early days. So it is not a long-term solution. And obviously, there's plenty of other problems with alcohol as well. So, I'm not puritanical. I'm not saying don't drink or anything, but I'm just saying, as a means to sleep, it's not what we might hope it to be. And finally, just have quiet time before bed. If you are somebody who goes to bed and you're on your phone or laptop, or the last thing you do before you go to bed is you watch TV and stuff, then remember, you're going to bed wired. You're going to bed with all those things still running around your mind, and your eyes have been subjected to all kinds of light, dancing light all over the place, like flashing. And it's hard to go straight from that to sleep. You need that time where you can maybe do some of the things we talked about above, about quiet time, qigong, reading, obviously, just sitting with yourself. And again, don't see this as, none of this should be like, oh, okay, other people get to watch TV before bed, but apparently I can't, and it's also unfair. Don't see it like that. Take it as an opportunity of, hey, this is an opportunity for me to actually change a few things and actually do healthier things. So, because I've kind of been forced into not watching TV before bed, well, how can I see that as a positive? How can I take that as something that I'm actually pleased about? Because I did some of these, and initially I was very resentful, that I couldn't do certain things. And then in the end I was like, oh, you know what? Those things I'm glad I don't do anymore. Where it was, for example, I used to play computer games before I went to bed. And I'm actually really pleased I don't do that now, because I like having quiet time before bed. So yeah, that is kind of it. I want to thank you so much for sticking with me through this. I hope at least something in these videos has been helpful to you, and I hope you're going to be in a good place. But yeah, stick with it, because you can do it. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And I'm not saying I sleep perfectly every night. That's the point. It isn't about, oh, I used to sleep badly and now it's perfect every night. It isn't like that. This is about how can we manage it and generally move forward. It doesn't mean it's always going to be perfect. But yeah, just give yourself a huge well done for getting through to the last video. And I wish you every success. If you have any questions or comments, don't be afraid to leave them below, and I will do my best to answer them. But yeah, thank you.